And I was like, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, yeah. So I came into this environment and I saw these people were incredibly adept in fighting. They were using grappling technique to do so. This impressed me a lot. Shortly after that time, as I was working, I started to hear talk about this show, this Ultimate Fighting show. And there was this Brazilian guy who had beaten everyone. He was wrestling people and strangling them and locking their arms, things like this, things that I'd never heard of. So I'd heard this, and one day I was teaching at Columbia University, and a close friend of mine who was also in the PhD program came into my office. It was office hours, and he said, "John, I know you work as a bouncer, and I know you work at night, and I started doing this martial art. It's called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And it's mostly fought on the ground. And I remember you said most of the fights you get into, people get put down on the ground and they wrestle. And I was wondering if you would be interested in doing it." And I was like, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Yeah. I never associated martial arts with Brazil. For me, martial arts were, Japan, Korea,
Right.
Brazil, like, what do they got? Capoeira, Like,
Right.
Who's this guy? So I'm like, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Isn't Jiu-Jitsu like Japanese? Like, what is
Right.
it? Isn't it like
Confusing.
a contradiction in terms, like Brazil Jiu-Jitsu? So this, at the time, I was around 230 pounds, and this guy couldn't have been more than 140, and he'd only been training 2 weeks. So he goes to me, we go on the ground, and we wrestle on the ground. And I was like, okay, let me put you in a headlock and let's see what you can do. So I shut the door of the office, I cleared out the furniture, I put this poor kid on the ground. Now, I had, the only thing I knew how to do on the ground in those days was headlock people. And I was a strong guy, I had a pretty nasty headlock. And so I grabbed my poor little friend and throttled him with basically a Kesugatame type headlock. And to my shock and horror, he started slipping around behind me. And I started holding harder and harder, and about 2 minutes went by, and I really had no real control over him. And he was starting to get around behind me. Now, I didn't know what back attacks were. I had complete naivety on the ground, but I could feel something bad was happening. Someone getting behind you is never a good thing in a fight. And I was getting tired. My arms were getting tired. I had no control over the guy. And finally, he slipped out, and I had to stand up and run away. I said, "Are you kidding me? I'm twice your size, and if this was a real fight, he would have got away from me, and I'm tired. That's not good." And I was just like, if he did this in 2 weeks, what could you do with some training? So I was fascinated.